Hello, welcome to the Boyd Life.
Today we're going to talk about living in the past or living in the present. Which one do you do? Stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to the Boyd Life. This is Life with Rick and Marta, where we will be discussing practically anything, any subject. It just really isn't off limits. We are expressing our views, opinions, and thoughts on various subjects. And it could be good, bad, or anything in between. Okay? So that's what's up with the Boyd Life. And let me point out this disclaimer. The views expressed on this channel may or may not be 100% factual. Anything goes, so have fun and be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below.
The reason we're talking about living in the past or living in the present is because when you're like we are in our 70s, we remember a complete different time. And what I mean by that is when I was young and getting gas and working, I was getting gas for like 18 cents a gallon, maybe 12 to 14 when the gas wars, remember the gas wars, when they would come. And I was going, man, gas is cheap. Of course, I was making, at that time when I first started working as a 16-year-old at a grocery store, I was making a whole quarter an hour. And I was
25 cents?
25 cents. And
wow.
I was just blown away one day when my boss came to me and said, Rick, I'm going to give you a raise. You're going to go to 50 cents an hour. 50 cents an hour. I was so happy. I was going to high school. I bought my own car. I spent like $200 for a 1951 Ford.
How could you afford a car making 50 cents an hour?
I put everything I made in the drawer, in the my top drawer of my dresser.
Oh, you didn't put it in the bank?
No, I never.
That was your bank.
No,
your top
the
drawer.
bank was my top drawer, and I got a loan from my dad. I paid him so much money a month.
Okay.
And but I paid that off pretty quick because even going to high school, that's why I never played high school sports, is because I was more interested in having a car, being on my own, doing things for me instead of playing high school sports. So I never played high school sports because right after school I was working, and I was working to 7 o'clock at night. I was working Saturdays. I was working a lot of hours and making what I thought was good money.
Well, the thing too is that's interesting, considering how much you like sports. I mean, you were really
but my priorities
love sports.
Then changed.
Yes, but as you got older, then you participated in some sports. I just remember baseball. I loved watching you play softball or whatever it was. You were so good.
Now, what was your first? What was your first job, and how much money did you make?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea how much I made. I thought I made $1 something an hour.
Of course, you're 3 years younger.
Yes, but I also started working when I was 16 after school and evenings, but I was working at pardon me, at one of those, it wasn't like a Dairy Queen or an A&W. This was a drive-through restaurant like that, very popular with the kids, and by kids I mean like high schoolers and stuff like that. But that's where I worked part-time for my first job. And I think it was $1 something. It probably wasn't a lot over $1 because then I left there for another job and it paid me a little more.
So when we're talking now, it was in my time frame. When I worked at the grocery store, it was in the 65, 66, and 67. And when I left the grocery store, I was making a whole dollar something an hour. And I was having a good time. Of course, I'm in high school. I'm not having to pay rent or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then when I went to college, and that only lasted about a year and a half, then I joined the Air Force. And of course, my wage went up, but it was still nothing tremendous, but I had room and board. So in the 70s, gas was probably around, we think, 36, 40 cents a gallon.
I can definitely remember when it was up to like 50 cents. And from there, I guess I'd have to go to like the 80s. And of course, yes, my pay went up too.
Yes, but also
Yeah.
there was a gas shortage, remember, and
Oh,
gas
that's
kind of
true.
jumped up really when they had
Yeah.
to stand in line or
Yeah.
wait in line for gas.
Well, yes, because I recall just about as vividly when it was 25, 26 cents a gallon, and then I remember 50 cents a gallon.
Yeah, and then during the gas shortage, it went up to $1 or something like that, and then they limited your speed to 55 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah, I
and all this,
remember that.
really gas shortages. But then, but in the 70s, to show you the difference, I got out of the Air Force in 72, and got a job in Lincoln at a space defense, a defense plant. And I started out at $2.25 an hour. And I had worked a lot, I worked a lot of overtime. So that, I was making like $10,000 a year, which was, my gosh, I was rolling in money. But cars cost at that time, I bought a, I know,
Couple thousand.
don't give me a bad time. I bought a Vega off the showroom floor, and it cost me around $2,000. So, but that was okay. and that Vega didn't last very long, but at least I got a good price for it.
Well, the thing I remember was when I actually bought my first car, my dad co-signed for me with the express, what do you call it, stipulation, I guess. You better not miss a payment. If you don't make your payments, blah, 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 because his whole thing at the time was, you signed a paper, someone gave you some money, you said you would pay it back, and gosh darn, you will pay it back, and you're not going to not pay and expect me to do it. I just made sure that they would allow you to get the loan.
And then we go to the 80s, and then gas got to about they between 70 to $1 something, because the gas shortage was over supposedly, and so then but your wages went up. So my wages had pretty well doubled by then. And
when
then I
was
also
that?
went into management in the 80s.
In the 80s?
In the
Okay.
80s. And so then you're making $5 to $6 an hour, maybe $7 an hour in the 80s. And so, but everything else went up.
I think you must have been making more than that,
Yeah.
because in the 80s, I specifically remember I was making $10 an
Okay,
hour.
yeah. So, look at the difference between 72 to 80 in the 80s, when you were making $2.25 an hour, and then all of a sudden you're making over $10 an hour. Look at the increase in wages. And so,
And now
of course,
these are we should, just a minute before you continue, we should probably let people, this of course is in the Midwest. We're
yeah,
talking
right.
Kansas
Yeah.
and Nebraska.
Not
That's-
New York in the East and
Right.
West Coast.
Okay.
And so, yes, I did get some job offers out in the West Coast, which are, we thought about moving, but
Yes, we were married then in the 80s.
in the late 80s.
And I recall even just shortly, might have been the year before we got married. I remember you getting a very good job offer,
But it was moving to California.
and I was like, well,
yeah, do we leave Nebraska with the kids?
no.
So we decided not to do it. But it was a very good pay raise. But we would have went into a place that's more expensive.
Yeah.
So
We wouldn't have liked
the
as
whole
well as
the
the
whole
Midwest.
point of this whole thing is, as your wages have increased, of course prices have increased. And then in the 90s, we were making really good money. Both of us were making really good money. We were up in the $20 range, an hour. And
Well,
of
plus
course, but we
all
had
of the benefits.
benefits.
How about you? I don't know where you might live or whatever. We don't know that, but what do you remember about prices of everything then and your income? Wherever you might live, please comment and share this with friends so that they can send in and watch us. Hopefully they'll like to watch us and let us know.
And the conversation, the conversation is about, as your wages have increased, prices had to increase because somebody's paying those wages and they still want to make money. And so the price of products have to raise. So living in the past and saying, wow, I was better off in the past. Yes, you might have been in ratios, but as your increase in prices increased wages, but everything else
Right.
costs more. So it just kind of goes together. And so now with prices and gas, well, in the 90s, gas got to around 150, 175. In the early 2000s, it stayed there. And then it started really raising. And so, but
Well,
your
it
wages
was-
started increasing too. Now people can't hardly make it, making 40 to 50, $60,000 a year, where man, that was top wages when we were, when we were younger. And 50, 60,000, you were living really well. Well, now 50,000, 40,000, you're just barely making it. And so that's why people are coming out here and saying, we need minimum wage to be $15. What
Well-
they don't understand is if you get that wage up to $15 on minimum wage, prices are going to go up. So
And people
are
on
you
fixed-
winning or losing?
And people on fixed incomes are already probably feeling the crunch from the inflation the last couple of years or a few years. But if when all of this keeps proceeding, how are people on fixed incomes going to make it? But I was going to say something when you were talking about the 1,000. Yes, the price of, he's just talking the price of gas and that. But look at the cost of food. Look at your utilities. How about the cost of a car or a house now?
Exactly.
You talked about how much you got a brand new one for
Right.
back in the was it the 80s? When did you get that thing?
In the
Or
70s.
70s, yeah, because we never had anything like that. But anyway, but look at the cost of cars and trucks and things today.
Right.
Look at the cost of homes
Now you're looking
today.
at a new
Or
car.
rent, if you rent, which now we have gone to renting. And just look at the rents. And that kind of thing,
But
too.
you look at new cars, now they're, minimum probably $35,000 for
a really nice,
a nice car, but
not a luxury car.
Not a luxury car, a smaller car.
But a nice.
But then you go to look at your trucks. Your trucks are going $70,000 to $100,000 for trucks.
Wow.
And
That's not what we paid for a truck.
no, and so everything goes up. So and then when inflation hits, it even goes up more, and it just makes your income seem less. So when people are saying I need a raise, that's all well and good, but as you get a raise, it follows everything else raises. So you actually make maybe even less by getting a pay raise.
Well, that would be true if
it's called the economy.
if it's something across the board, like when they talk about the minimum wage, which is across the board. Now, you might be at a job and you've worked there a year and you get a nice bump in pay for, you
Right.
know, for that. Or, you know, it might be an annual increase or it might be a cost of living increase, whatever, you know, the case might be. But it's, I doubt, I don't know. I mean, we haven't worked, so we don't know about cost of living raises. But I would have a feeling that those don't keep
Happen to get
pace
very
with
much.
with inflation.
And
I
so
don't know.
what, you know, the point is so back in the 1970s, if you made $10,000-$15,000 a year, 20,000 in the Midwest, you were well off. And if you made in the 80s, then you got to think about it's 40, 30, 40,000. In the 80s, and it's 60 to 70. In the 90s, 70 to 90. Now, if you get a job, you're hoping to make in triple figures. You know, triple figures, that's where your goal is. Well, man, gosh, if we would have made triple figures when we were making, it'd be unbelievable. We would have been what we called somebody with a lot of money.
Right.
But so it's all in perspective. So living in the past or living in the present, you have to remember what you're making comparatively to what you were making years and years ago. And yes, prices, it's hard to keep up.
However,
Go ahead.
okay, however, I'm going to interrupt you there because do you think you were better off when in the past you maybe didn't make as much but things didn't cost so much, or are you better off? Do you think you're better off now with the, you know, the cost of things and your income and things like that? And I don't know. I don't know.
Well, my answer to that is we were making good money, and we had 6 kids, three each, and we had both full-time jobs, plus we did side jobs. So were we better off, or were we just working more?
Well, the thing is, we had 6 kids.
Yes. And we
Who
couldn't even
has 6
even
kids
provide
these
for those
days,
kids. I
you know?
mean, for colleges or things like that.
No, they had to have their own part-time jobs.
Yeah, I
and
mean, so
we were trying to get them to get what do you call it, scholarships. And 1 or 2 of ours kids probably got student loans. A couple of our kids went to didn't go to college maybe right away. They went later, and they went to community college or to trade school, whatever you call it, and because they didn't know what they wanted to do with their life. I mean, how many of us are really sure? My husband was majoring in something that he never went into, and I swear he doesn't know much about.
Finance. I have a double degree in finance, and Marta does the finances because I kind of like, if it's in my pocket, I gotta spend it.
But anyway,
My gosh.
I didn't know what I wanted to major in or go in there, so I never got my degree, and I went to other, besides university, I went to community college, other trade schools, things like that. And it wasn't until I was probably in my, after my mid-50s, you know, late 60, that I knew what I wanted to do and would be really good at. The other thing is I never have had, we've never had enough. We've never been wealthy.
No.
We've never been rich. We've never, been well-to-do. We've been average. If we had been one of those other things, there's a couple of things
we
I'd
could
like to
have
do. And that's why I always...
live in the past a little bit?
No, that's why when we do the play, if we buy a lottery ticket, I go, okay, now I know the odds are astronomical, but what if we won? And I will say how much I I think we should have this much for for our future, you know, and on our children and relatives and friends, and everything else, the bulk of it, I always wanted to put in different like
charities,
foundations
and
and things like that.
But
Yeah.
anyway, so the whole idea of
What do you
this
think?
video is, living in the past. You can say, "Oh, the good old days." Well, the good old days are any days that you're alive,
Yeah.
and comparative to what you make the best out of every day. Don't try to just live in the past, because you can't compare the past to the present, because it's basically the same. It's like gambling. You might win a little, but you're not winning enough to make a big difference.
Well, you cannot change the past, but you can change the future, depending on whether you want to or not. The future, it could be what you want it to be, for the most part. Now, maybe not being rich. I don't think we'll ever be rich. You know, that ship has sailed. But tell us what you think. What your thoughts are, and be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, where we'll cover any number of topics of conversation.
Right. And the last thing we'd like to say is plan for the future. Start putting money away when you're young. You'll be amazed how much it helps you when you're older. All right? So thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.